This presentation is a joint venture by Thomas Gaines, Michael McKee, Douglas Price, and Christina Hoff, and explores the short and long run economic profit analysis of the government-owned NBN company and retail service providers that on-sell the NBN services. There has been a change in the federal government, and our group has been approached by the new Minister for Telecommunications, who wants to look at the current state of the NBN. Now, the Minister is acutely aware that his government has to bring the NBN project to its meandering completion and wants to know how best to do it. For background, the NBN is a government-owned company which was originally established by the Rudd Labor government in 2009, and since then the original budget, $15 billion, has blown out to the current estimate of $51 billion, and there have been numerous issues with speeds, costs and service, which has led many experts to suggest that the network is already not fit for purpose. From initial conversations with the Minister, it was clear that they were concerned about a number of things. Firstly, whether economies of scale would impact the profitability of the market for both the NBN company and retail service providers. Second, what impact the rollout of the new 5G network would have on the demand for the NBN. And finally, whether the best case outcome for the NBN company is to operate as a profit maximising or loss minimising monopolist, and what this then looks like as a short run versus long run proposition. The NBN company's peak funding was put in place to set itself up to operate as a network wholesaler, providing broadband via its fibre network to retail service providers on a non-discriminatory basis. It now provides a number of different technologies in addition to the original fibre to the node, which includes fibre to the premises, hybrid fibre coaxial, fixed wireless, and Sky Muster satellite. And these additional technologies are delivered to provide flexibility and cost savings. In terms of their performance, the NBN company's revenue in 2018 was $1.9 billion, and NBN has seen increases over 100% year on year for the last 5 years. However, NBN is operating at a loss due to a massive investment in infrastructure, as well as paying rebates to existing service providers and interest repayments on loans. So it is expected that NBN company will cease operating at a loss when there is about a 73 to 75% uptake of services and an average revenue per user of $52. That said, the retail service providers are putting pressure on for wholesale fees to come down, and new technologies such as 5G might impact the uptake of the NBN. At the moment, the NBN company operates as a monopoly and as such is a price maker and is the ultimate decision maker over price and quantity. But there is a limit to the price, as customers can and will make a choice to switch to an alternative or substitute product, such as 5G, if the price is too high. Most costs incurred by the NBN are variable and are increasing in the short term as the NBN expands, and are listed here. Fixed costs are only public communications and finance costs. Subscriber costs, depreciation, and amortization are huge costs that for the purpose of this economic analysis and future decision making are considered sunk costs. Of course, there is the opportunity cost for the government investing close to $51 billion that could have otherwise been spent on schools, health or roads, to name a few.
As a monopoly, NBN Co has the exclusive right to on-sell the use of its NBN infrastructure. There is, though, a limit to the price that it can charge, as consumers can choose a substitute or to forgo fixed-line internet altogether. If in the longer term, NBN Co face low demand compared to the costs of servicing that demand, then it might end up as a loss-minimising monopolist. It has been argued that the Coalition's revised mixed technology mode is cheaper and results in quicker returns for NBN than Labour's original fibre to the premises plan. However, experts insist that Labour's plan would have led to superior technology that resulted in lower operating costs. Other technologies, such as the 5G network, could impact on demand and take-up of the NBN. However, most experts indicate that due to a variety of factors such as higher costs of data and potential for congestion, that the 5G network will not pose a huge threat or replace the NBN. It is yet to be determined whether NBN Co will create economies of scale via its fibre rollout. Economies of scale exist where long-run average cost decreases and output increases. Profit maximisation occurs in the elastic part of the demand curve, and so NBN cannot assume absolute demand. If it raises prices for RSPs who are already experiencing a significantly reduced margin, then demand will shift elsewhere. As previously mentioned, NBN Co offers wholesale broadband to RSPs. Telstra is one such RSP. Telstra offers fixed line services via various subscription plans. To combat NBN rollout issues, Telstra has introduced a number of customer service improvements, such as smart modems that connect to the 4G network when there is a fixed line outage. In terms of Telstra's revenue and performance, Telstra state that NBN Co has created issues for them, in that they're facing a fixed line market that is changing and margins are decreasing. Mobile network competition is also increasing, as this has had an overall negative impact on revenue. The Telstra CEO has stated that if fixed line revenue margins reach zero, this will mean increased prices for customers as well as other market participants struggling to stay afloat. The NBN rollout has led to Telstra shifting from monopolist to a company that operates in a competitive market with a high threat of new entrants, and Telstra is looking for product differentiation.
This is Doug Price, and I'll be taking you through the solution methodology and the first solution. For the solution methodology, the output unit we chose was the average revenue per user. This was taken from the NBN co-published materials and assumes that it will increase as users have greater acceptance of the technology and a desire for faster connections. A revenue schedule was created showing the marginal revenue cost, average total costs, and average revenue. A lot of the numbers were taken from the NBN Co annual report and corporate plan. These were then analysed on graphs and tested under a few different assumptions to look at the sensitivity towards variable cost. Will economies of scale impact the profitability for both NBN Co and the retail service providers? The first model assumes a higher revenue with a lower percentage of overall operating costs being variable. This has a break-even that occurs around the 4.2 million customer activation mark, the intersection of the average total cost and average revenue lines. While economic profit hasn't been maximised, at full capacity we're looking at a revenue of $718 per customer versus an average total cost of $438, indicating a healthy profit margin. The second model uses the NBN Co pricing in line with their projections. However, operating expenses are assumed to have a higher variability. There is a profit point just past the 6 million connected households. However, at around the 6.5 million households, a loss-making situation begins, and this gets a lot worse towards the projected uptake of the NBN. Porter's 5-power model was used to look at the potential for profitability amongst the retail service providers. Unfortunately, the retail service providers have challenging conditions. The NBN Co is an effective monopoly on the supplier side. There's high threat of new entrants, and the consumers have a lot of bargaining power by being able to switch between providers. Overall, this means it's a very competitive area, and retail service providers will not be able to make an economic profit over the long term.
For Solution 2, the impact of the rollout of the 5G mobile network was analysed by creating a demand curve to model the effect of a shift due to the availability of an alternative to the NBN. The implementation of future technologies such as the 5G network is unlikely to render the NBN redundant, but rather provide an alternative to consumers within the market and reduce the NBN's market share. This will result in a left shift in the demand curve for the NBN. The demand curve is expected to shift left as a result of the increased competition within the market. The extent of this shift will be dependent on a number of factors, including the geographical area being reached by the 5G network, the ability of the telecommunication companies in keeping the price of the 5G offerings low, and the ability of the 5G networks to maintain speed as demand for their services increases. The 5G rollout within Australia will cause a small left shift in the demand curve of the NBN Co. As future technologies continue to develop, there is likely to be further competition added to the market. As such, it will be important for the NBN Co. to continue to find cost-effective improvements for its service offering, ensuring it can provide a comparable product at a competitive price into the future. For Solution 3, the best economic potential for the NBN Co. was analysed under a number of lenses. The first part is to review the economic profit maximisation of NBN Co. over the shorter term. NBN Co. can make a profit from economies of scale, with the margin being dependent on customers' acceptance of an increase in cost not impacting on demand. Economic profit is maximised when customers are around 9 million. This assumes the NBN Co. is largely in control of price and continues to operate as a monopoly. Average total cost appears to be rising, but this is not indicating diseconomies of scale at this point. Fixed costs still exist, and this is a short-run view. Notice there is also a point where MC intersects with MR at around 1.2 million customers. If NBN Co. had continued to operate at around this number, it would need to converge on MC equals MR to minimise economic loss. In the long run, there are various scenarios that could play out. In the first scenario, in Figure 2, with largely increasing variable costs, economic profit is maximised where customer activations are between 5.5 and 6 million. NBN Co. will likely begin to operate at a loss over the long term where there is a large sustained rise in variable costs. The average total cost curve is sloping upwards, indicating possible diseconomies of scale beyond 6 million customers. However, this is not necessarily a longer term outlook since there are still fixed costs and inputs involved. If variable costs are controlled and do not continually rise, the economic profit is maximised where customers are between 8 and 8.5 million. This means that the NBN Co. will return the best economic profit at a little over 8 million customers. This is only possible where variable costs are controlled and not continually rising. This graph considers what a longer run average total cost might look like without the fixed cost component and low variable costs. The average total cost is much flatter, indicating constant returns to scale using the proposed cost structure and price. This would be the case where NBN Co. is still operating as a monopoly. The final scenario indicates what a longer run average total cost might look like without the fixed cost component, low variable costs, and acting as a price taker. The average total cost is much flatter, indicating constant returns to scale using the proposed cost structure. In this scenario, the NBN Co. is now operating in a competitive market as the 5G network and other technologies provide customers with viable alternatives. NBN Co. is forced to reduce price, which erodes revenue. In this scenario, MR equals AR, since NBN Co. are no longer considered a monopoly and act as a price taker.